Welcome, welcome. Phenomenal time of the year. What a time to be alive, Mick. Welcome into Six Rotations, a weekly NCAA women's volleyball show. I'm Daniel Gilman alongside my co-host Mick Haley, and it is tournament time. No more speculating, Mick. No more picking, no more guessing. We've got the Sweet 16 set. We had a great weekend, and although there weren't as many upsets as some wanted, that's probably going to lead to what will be an all-time weekend coming up for the regional semifinals and the regional finals. But first, let me tell you about our show, brought to you as always by SNA Sports. Better equipment for a better game. Go check them out online at sna.com. And the biggest thing, Mick, is there was one huge upset, I would say, this weekend, right? The Kansas running rampant through two top 20 teams, showing that the Big 12 is not the laughingstock that we maybe had made it out to be outside of Texas and Baylor. And we're happy to be joined by the senior leader of Kansas in our Around the Arena segment at the end. So stay tuned to hear from Jenny Moser as they take the trip to take on the Pittsburgh Panthers. And what we're going to do today is we will go region by region, break down the top left, the top right, the bottom left, the bottom right, the first two rounds, and then the regionals, as of course, I don't know. I don't know how much volleyball you were able to watch, Mick, but I had 4 or 5 screens. It's every December I remind myself how kind of low-key crazy I am because I can somehow follow the quad box on my Apple TV and my iPad and my laptop. And I was so happy that everything was on one platform. So you didn't have to search for the WCC network or the Pac-12 network. What'd you think of that? It's been a hotly contested opinion and debate about whether people like that it was all on ESPN Plus.
Well, I came from a debate just recently this morning about people that just compared this to basketball, and they think it's not right. They think they've been able to get basketball on every station out there, and you can't find it if you don't subscribe to just one particular area for volleyball. And they think that's a real weakness for our sport, and they want it corrected. So that's the feedback I've received on that.
Well, let me ask you before we get into it then. Do you think it's fair to compare volleyball to basketball?
Well, I think it's normal that people do that. We have the top women's sport in the country as far as participation, and then basketball gets more exposure. It's like they're forcing basketball down people's throats when in fact, more and more people are wanting to watch volleyball and can't figure out how to find it.
And you know, my stance on this, and I've expressed it over Twitter, is it's all a process. Right? Things can't all be fixed in one season. So the goal of volleyball fans, of us, is to spend the $5, get ESPN Plus this month, watch it all on ESPN Plus. Then the suits up in the top of the corporation, the ESPN and the NCAA people will see the increase in viewership on their network, which is what they were trying to do. Get ESPN Plus going. We can help them do that. Show them that volleyball is a sport that can grow so instantaneously that it exploded ESPN Plus, which will then next year, in my opinion, get them to, okay, let's get the biggest ACC game on ACC Network. Let's get the biggest SEC game on SEC Network. I would prefer to have it all on the ESPN networks because that's what all the other major, women's basketball NCAA tournament is all on the ESPN platforms. It, in my opinion, is a disaster when you're going to pac12network.com and there's no channel on your TV for it. And then you're going to WCC Network or Big West TV, depending on who the hosts are. That adds way too much ambiguity because then you're guessing every year which conferences are going to host. So I like the uniformity. And I think all we have to do is just show our devotion to this sport and then let the people who make the decisions make their decisions based off of how much we are watching, right? We got that 400, 500,000 people watching the championship last year. Guess what? They boosted everything. Double the amount of national TV games this season. I expect it to continue to grow in that way. And before we jump into our coverage, I kind of wanted to get that off my chest because so many people are upset that it's on ESPN Plus. But I know more people that have ESPN Plus than have ESPNU, Mick. So it's like, how cheap is it to get ESPN Plus for 1 month or bundle it with Hulu or Disney Plus, and then everyone's got smart TVs and you could just watch 4 games at once? It seems to me like a great solution.
There seems to be a certain part of the population, though, that does not does not do all the apps and all of that, all those things. And so you hear it from different quarters, and it is interesting. From my standpoint, I love it on ESPN Plus. I have a row of 20 matches, and I'm just sitting there clicking.
Just bang, right when it goes to commercial. I agree.
Yeah. And it really is quite helpful in evaluating the talent of the teams and getting information and that sort of thing. But there are some people that can't negotiate out there yet.
Yeah,
and so
I think we're unfortunately
on everything. Yeah.
I just think we're unfortunately going into an age where you have to adjust. You just have, I think that's what you have to do. If you want to watch the conference championships, you get ESPN Plus. If they want to put it on ESPN News, that's also difficult to find, right? That's what I've seen is like, why don't you throw it on ESPN News or ESPNU or all those different things? It's not going to get on ESPN2 right away because men's basketball just makes so much money. That's always going to take a priority right now. So it's one of those things where we have to grow the sport by viewers putting the time into whatever they tell us. That's just kind of how sports work in my mind. But let's jump into it, Mick. We'll talk a little bit throughout, but 14 of the 16 seeds advance. How about this? Every single top 16 seed swept their opening round. That's pretty incredible. They went 48-0 in sets in the opening round.
Well, that's kind of the way it's supposed to work. They might have swept, but there were some very, very close matches. Intensity-wise, it wasn't one of those things where you just walked in, blew the other team out, and walked off. There were a lot of teams that were sweating bullets, even though they got a 3-0 win because the other team made them work. I thought the intensity of this year's tournament in the first round started off way higher than ever before, and it continued into the second round. I was really enjoying the matches.
It was incredible, wall to wall, right? Some of those, low majors that made noise. Texas A&M Corpus Christi had Baylor in the ropes. Citadel was leading late in the third set against Georgia Tech. Fairfield in every set against UCLA, right in it. South Dakota, the second set against Minnesota. Mick, in every sport, we've been reminded how great it is to have the home atmosphere back after COVID. In no more than this one, right? When you're watching the raucous atmosphere of Atlanta or Minneapolis or Madison really affect this match, it's so amazing to have them all back. What was one or two matches that you felt the fan environment really take control?
In the first round or the second round?
Either one.
Well, in the second round, certainly the Texas environment helped them get by Rice. Rice was so well prepared. From the players to the coaching staff, they did, as far as I could determine, everything right. And yet the fans and Texas's intensity just simply was too much for a really, really good and well-coached Rice team. On the other hand, the same thing happened to Utah going back to BYU. I mean, that match was similar. Back and forth, Utah winning the first one. They hadn't taken one there this year. They lost 3-0 the first time they went there. But the fans were just incredibly out of control in support of the home team. So I think on neutral courts, we see maybe same result, but maybe many more sets.
I agree. A lot more 5-setters, right? We only got 3 5-setters in that first round. And let's go through some of the favorite matches of that first round. It's going to be hard to cover everything, which we won't be able to do in this episode, but we can talk about the best of each round. And I think the 3 best matches of the first round were probably those 3 5-setters. Ball State coming back, beating Michigan in 5 sets. That's got to feel good, right? Playing for Dr. Don Shondell and all of the emotions involved. And of course, all of the hometown ties throughout the country and seeing all the coaches tuning in on social media and rooting on their Cardinals, including you, of course. And we could talk, we'll start right there, but let me go through some of the other ones, right? The Hawaii Mississippi State match went 5. That was pretty competitive. And then FGCU coming out of nowhere. They looked like they were dead in the water to reverse sweep Texas Tech.
Yeah, that match was particularly interesting because they did look like they were dead in the water. And then all at once, Tech gave them just one small chance. They just relaxed for a short time, and the whole momentum of that match changed, in my opinion. So I think I think there were some great first round matches. There were no 45-minute matches, nothing like you saw in the past. Every team came to play. They were really prepared. I enjoyed the whole thing.
Yeah. And then into the second round. And I will say there were probably one or two of those 1 hour drive-by style matches. But in the second round, it felt like all of the temperature in every single gym ratcheted up, right? Because you've got just 3 Big 12 teams left. And how much did the Big 12 need the Jayhawks to upset Creighton so that it wasn't a massive failure to have 5 of your 7 teams eliminated in that first weekend? But Kansas, they probably, between Kansas and Illinois, right? Because if you guys were watching, Illinois may have pulled off the most unlikely run in the opening weekend that we had amongst the 64 teams because of the fact that, I don't know, they never really did anything in the regular season, right? They beat everyone they were supposed to beat for Chris Thomas's bunch, and they didn't really get maybe one of the big upsets, but they took care of a good West Virginia team in 4 sets. And I will say they smoked Kentucky at home.
Shackled was the word I was going to use. They shackled Kentucky. I mean, if you watch Skinner's face, I mean, his mouth was changing into, what can I do to stop this? And there was nothing. You could have sent him a telegram saying, you might as well just pack up because this is not going to change. I mean, Illinois took total control of that match, and that hasn't happened to Kentucky in 2 years. So I thought hats off to Illinois. That was a absolutely dominating performance.
And I will correct myself, right? Early in the conference season, Illinois had wins over Purdue and Penn State, but late in the year, right? They needed to get some of those wins, swept by Nebraska twice, swept by Minnesota, swept by Ohio State, and then losing in 4 sets to Michigan down the stretch. They didn't have any of those quality wins, and now they'll have a rematch with Nebraska as we can kind of pull up some of these schedules. Let's get to the regional schedule for the fans here, just so you guys can get a look early on. And it starts early. You've got this Thursday, Saturday split. And what that means is all of the games on Thursday instead of some Thursday, some Friday. So us on the West Coast, we get a 9 or 8 a.m. first serve between Purdue and BYU from Pittsburgh. I'm ecstatic about it. I love this new schedule.
Well, those matches are going to be worth watching because let me tell you, if BYU can pass on the road, they're going to give Purdue everything that they want, and maybe more. I
think BYU and Purdue had 2 of the most intriguing second round matches of any of the 32 because Purdue gets demolished through 2 sets against a Dayton team that looked unstoppable.
Jekyll and Hyde, no question.
And we've seen this in the past from Dave Shondel's crew. Something about that intermission talk. And I know it because my first year as the Purdue broadcaster, there were 11 5-setters and they went 10-1 in those 11 5-setters. So I know that, when all looks like it's going to the dumpster, he finds a way to get the grit out of his team. And they were gritty. They blew out Dayton in that 4th set, 25-6. Yeah. And then the 5th set was a snoozer. BYU in the same way looked like they were not dead, but there was one set from Utah where I thought the Utes were going to do it. The first set after Utah sweeps BYU in the regular season at home, BYU comes out cold at home in a crazy atmosphere, but Kenzie Korber, battling cramps, comes out to serve out the match. It was goosebump filling, a holy war to remember.
Does she cramp up every match? I haven't seen one match yet where she doesn't have cramps. I have to figure that one out.
Yeah, Korber against her former team. Cannot wait for that one. I want you here. It's so tough, right? I mean, how much can we really break down everything? But while we're looking at this regional schedule, Florida against Louisville. Was there a team that looked better in the first 2 rounds than Florida? Because they had 2 walkover matches. Miami didn't put up a fight against the Gators. And this is a Florida team that was playing without their star player with the rough news and the tragic news that Tara Caesar was battling mental and physical health issues and was going to sit out the NCAA tournament. That came out just days before the first round. Florida looked great. And we know what the Gators can do against top teams because they forced Wisconsin to 5 in the Elite Eight last year.
Well, they have a lineup now that's quite offensively explosive, and it may be more cohesive actually now. So watch out that Florida doesn't pull some upsets here and get themselves in a position that no one expected them to be in. I'm convinced Florida has the talent to do well. They haven't used it all year to the level I think they've been capable of. So watch out Louisville in that regard.
I agree. And that's Sophia Victoria, the one who replaced Caesar and looked like they didn't miss a beat. She's been waiting to play and kind of jump in. And all of the fans were chiming in on social media that they know they've been following Sophia Victoria all year, and she's got the chops. So if anyone can take down number one on the road, I wouldn't put it past the Mary Wise and the Gators led by the Montserrat and Beeson. Beeson's really good. I try not to be too biased on the show, but I love watching the Gators. I love watching Mary Wise coach. That game is 1:00 Eastern time on Thursday in the same region as Ohio State and Georgia Tech. Did Georgia Tech have the most impressive win against a non-seeded team by just dismantling Western?
Yeah, they probably had the best scouting report of any of the teams out there. I thought they took all of the advantages that Western Kentucky has and slowed them down, if not shut them down.
I'd say shut them down. I mean, they shut them down.
It was a well-prepared Georgia Tech team for the speed of the offense that Western Kentucky had and the defensive ability of Western Kentucky. I mean, they took them out of that pretty quick, and Western Kentucky was frustrated all the way to the bench. And they should have been. I thought maybe it's Georgia Tech's best match of the year.
And it came off of maybe their worst match of the year because they let Citadel, the worst RPI team in the tournament, hang around, even have set point at one time in that first match. And then our Airbnb duo of Bergman and Brambilla, if they don't finish out that third set, it was 24-23 against Western Kentucky. If the Hilltoppers get that third, anything could happen.
They needed one set. That's exactly right. One set.
So pivotal.
That would have been basically sweat off the nose because they just wanted back in the match so badly. And Georgia Tech shut the door.
And I will say the matches that kind of went, unnoticed by my standard. And if there was a red zone channel, I'm not sure how many times Ohio State, Tennessee, or North Carolina, Tennessee would have gotten on there. That kind of felt like the forgotten pod of this weekend. And meanwhile, let's get a red zone channel going. There's no reason why ESPNU can't have one person saying, all right, this is set point. Let's pull that up. All right. Maybe 2025 could be a target date for that. I will gladly sign up to be the Scott Hansen.
That's pretty good by you. I like that idea.
Right?
That's an original right there. Nice going.
No reason. I mean, I think everyone thought it, though. I won't take too much credit for it. I'm sure everyone had their own, opinions on whether that should be. And then, we talked a little bit of Kansas, Pitt and Penn State, 22 all in each of the first 3 sets. And it came down to a few key points at the end of the fourth. Serena Gray was the difference maker. And I love to see someone make the transfer. I haven't middled around about it, right? I didn't love the move of Russ Rose to bring in 2 of those stars and bench Annie Kate Fitzpatrick, a player who showed so much fire in her freshman year. And now ACF is in the transfer portal. So, Fitzpatrick, Annie Kate, right? What's her last name?
One of those. I don't.
Right. And, I can't talk too much about how I love her.
When they go in the portal, you just lose sight of them. They have to come out again.
But I'm happy for her. I'm hoping she finds a good spot. And you know what? People are calling for Russ Rose after that loss. And a lot, there's a lot of Penn State fans that are wishing that they would go after Dan Fisher, which is an interesting perspective.
Wow. That would be disappointing because you have to give Fisher credit for putting together that unit. And with some of the things that have happened with the Penn State program, I thought Rose did a remarkable job in getting them to be competitive. If you look at their numbers, they should not beat Pitt, and yet they were in the hunt that whole match. and they could have won. One or two things go. They just haven't been able to score enough points the last 3 years. So, yeah, he's got to do some work on his outside terminators, but he's still in the business.
Yes, I hear you guys yelling. I know it's Fitzpatrick. I should have stuck with my gut. How about the Hawaii situation, right? Because Hawaii has been pinned up with Washington now 4 times in the second round in the last 11 years, and they've beaten them all 4 times. It's like 9 out of the last 10 years, Washington advances. Are they the most consistent team that nobody's giving too much credit to?
I don't know that they are, but I know that they can get up for big games. And
maybe they're getting great draws because of the location too. I don't know.
And they've got good arms, so they can score the ball. But the numbers would say that Washington's going to win this.
Well, Washington is going to now have the big one. They head down to Austin to face Texas at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. Can we just pencil that in for a 5-setter, or am I getting too consistent? Because I feel like every year Washington plays this amazing 5-setter in the regional semifinals.
They need to get one of the first 2 sets. Washington does.
Yep.
Otherwise, Texas and that crowd in that small gym, Gregory Gym, is going to be a little stifling for the size of the Washington players. I mean, the court's going to be really small. Both these teams are huge. And when they both go out there on the court together, there's not going to be a lot of room left, that somebody can't get a ball unless it's in the stands. So I think Texas wins that maybe easier than we think, but I could be surprised.
No way. Shocker.
No, I'm
You're the best, Mick. No, I know.
I'm neutral on this, but I watched the Longhorns handle Rice, and I was absolutely impressed with 3 things: their serving, their blocking, and their intensity.
Yeah, I just don't think Rice has the size. I mean, the Hoffman and Dreschel duo, they both hit over 400 against a defensive-minded Hawaii team. I like 5 sets in that one. We're going to wait and see there. And then the other one is the rematch. How hard is it in volleyball, Mick, to beat a team 3 times in one season? Because that's the question for Nebraska and Illinois.
Yeah, in volleyball, it's a little bit different than basketball, but it is harder. And I talked to the Illinois coach, and he thinks they can win. And I would tell you, I think they can win if they can reproduce the same team that beat Kentucky, because that was impressive. That was a very impressive performance.
It's a big ask. I'm curious how much red travels down from Lincoln to Austin. I think that could be a difference maker. I think if they have a good contingent, which I'm sure they will, I think Nebraska has a major advantage there. Nebraska, Texas is so juicy. It's too bad we won't have an episode between them. But, if that does line up, I cannot wait to watch Nebraska and Texas if chalk stays for the late one on Saturday night. Now, Saturday goes really late. It starts at 4 p.m. Eastern with the Pittsburgh regional final. It ends in Austin with a 10 p.m. start. And then we can wrap things up. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, those Nebraska people got to find seats. That's
I know they got to get down there.
3,000 people, and those Texas people have had those tickets purchased for a long time, so they may have to put up an outside screen out on the foyer there and let everybody sit outside and watch that match. They could have another 10,000 outside there.
So then we've got 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern with a seeded performance. And it's funny to see, right? The 2 seeds that lost were both on the right side of the bracket, while the top left stays 116, 8-9, and the bottom left stays 5-12, 4-13. As I don't know what you thought about, let's hear it, right? Baylor, right? Did they look as good as you wanted them to? They swept Washington State. Minnesota did the same. They swept Stanford. Both teams coming in without losing a set. That one could be the dandy of the day on Thursday.
I feel Baylor wins this match against Minnesota because Minnesota only scores 17.3 points, 17.3 points per set, and they need to be in the 18s. But guess what? Baylor only scores 17.4. This is a dead even match. If there's one match you want to watch, it's Minnesota-Baylor. They are absolutely even in production, and it's whoever comes in to win this match is going to be the one that moves forward here.
And, I don't want to make any picks, right? I don't want to pick many of these upsets. I know BYU is a fancy upset pick coming. I think Minnesota is not an upset pick. I think Minnesota is gelling at the right time, a team that we were questioning all year. But when Hugh gets things moving and when you make Stanford look like that, I think you have an advantage here in a neutral site. But is it that neutral when you only have to go a couple hours from Minneapolis to Madison, and that the hometown Badger fans are probably rooting for Minnesota, so they may have the home court advantage?
Yeah, it's interesting. Minnesota hasn't always performed well in the tournament. They've had high points and low points in the tournament the last 4 or 5 years. They've been a good team in the tournament. They've been knocked out early. They were knocked out at home when they were hosting. With
Seliger Swenson. I remember that. That was a crazy one against Oregon.
I think Minnesota's got something to prove. They need to prove that they can get into this finals of the regional, and then they need to prove that they can beat up on Wisconsin.
Yep. And then this is, of course, that opening night rematch in Madison. So the same venue for Samity against Presley. And that one, Baylor won the first set in extra points and the fourth set in extra points. So things could be quite tight as we head into that bottom left in our final regional to break down. Oh, UCLA tiptoed through Fairfield. They survived UCLA, and they demolished them in the fifth set, sure. And we'll talk to the UCLA transfer Moser in just a moment here. But do you think this one's going to be close?
I don't
think so. Yeah.
But I'm interested to know if UCLA is healthy. If they're healthy, they could cause some trouble. But I just think Wisconsin plays a lot faster than they do. They both try to play defense, but I think Wisconsin's defense is better. And then it gets down to serving. And Wisconsin's been a primary server all year. They've used that as one of their weapons to improve their team. I just can't see UCLA winning this.
The one thing, and it's a fun one that I've just kind of, looked up in a heap, UCLA and Illinois, along with Purdue, the only 3 teams of the 16 that lost more than one set in the last weekend. So those are 3 teams. Now, do you think that's at all an advantage that you did get to drop a set in the tournament and power through that? Now you can look back and say, hey, we got through the 4-setter or 5-setter.
Are you suggesting that they're now warmed up and ready to go?
I don't know. I'm asking what you think, right? Do you think losing a set? Now, Purdue lost 2 sets. UCLA lost 2 sets. The other ones lost 1 set in each match. If you're talking about Illinois, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I just kind of looked it up there.
I think this is a different tournament. I think the team that's going to win is not going to get hot until maybe the regional finals. And so I think it's going to be a tug of war. They've had to play too well too early to carry this through 3 weekends. The first and second rounds were tough on everybody, tough on the people that won, devastating for the people who lost, because everybody thought they had a chance. Well, not everybody, but I would say 40, 45, 46 of these teams thought they had a chance to get into the second round. Then there were teams that thought, like Central Florida thought they were going to regionals. They thought they could beat UCLA, and they almost showed that they did.
They could have, yeah, they could have beaten them. Now, we would never have known because there wasn't a score bug on the broadcast.
Yeah, what is that with UCLA? They got to get it right over there. I can't figure that one out either. But anyway, that's what I think. So I think playing 6 really tough matches to win this thing, you're going to have ups and downs. So I think losing matches here and then all at once, the teams that are going to have a chance to win are going to get in rhythm. They're going to get in sync, and then they're going to start, and the train's going to stay on the track.
All right. So I'll go ahead.
For those. Yeah.
That's a good call. So we'll wrap up this episode before we head over to the Kansas senior Jenny Moser with this question. Okay. You've got the seeds available 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Of those 9 single-digit seeds, how many of them advance to the regional final? And of course, 8's going to play 9. So there's one given.
Well, I say
how many
3.
double digit or
three.
unseeded teams you think win?
I think 3 teams. The one I look at it a little bit different. I look at 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of the
I will
4,
say, I guess 7 is gone. So sorry. So there's no 7.
Yeah,
so of the 8,
I think 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think 1, 2, and 4 advance. I think there's going to be upset in 3.
So you think Kansas has a chance to take down Pittsburgh?
I'm more thinking BYU has a chance to take down Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so that would be talking about the Final 4 then. Okay, I meant regional final. I meant getting through Thursday.
If you said 8, I would say Florida is one that's going to maybe surprise somebody.
I like Minnesota. That's going to be my pick. If
and
there's
Georgia
one.
Tech might upset, might show Ohio State.
Well, that's an 8 versus 9. I don't even know if that's enough. That man,
Well,
Mick, this is going to be great.
Here's the deal on that.
I can't wait.
The deal on Ohio State is the top scoring team in the country. They score at 18.7 points per set. Nobody else is there. They're there, but they're the 10th in differential. So that kind of evens things out. And Georgia Tech is in the middle of both of those. I call that a draw, and whoever comes out.
Well, people online loved to say that some of your points per sets didn't quite live up to the hype this weekend with Illinois and Kansas advancing. At Izzy Oddie said we'll be interested to see what Mick Haley has to say after Kentucky and Penn State were dispatched, given his stat drooling, which is hilarious.
Well, remember, those are what the numbers say. It doesn't take in the human element. That's the thing. I'm not going to speculate on the human element because that's why we play the games.
Cannot wait. Thursday morning, wake up early if you're on the West Coast. You got a 11 a.m. East Coast first serve between BYU and Purdue. We're going to be wall to wall, zoned in, covering all the matches on Twitter at 6 Rotation. So make sure to catch us there. We're going to head over to our Around the Arenas segment with Jenny Moser now. Into our Around the Arenas segment here on the first week of December. And there were only 2 big upsets this past weekend. One of them, Kansas. We're happy to be joined by star outside for Kansas, Jenny Moser. Jenny, thanks so much for jumping in.
Of course. Thanks for having me. All
right. In a few words, I'd love to hear, and I'm sure fans would love to hear, just what the whirlwind of an NCAA tournament on the road is like, and kind of having no days off in between those matches, how much time you have to cram for Creighton after the first win, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but honestly, I think our Big 12 schedule really helped with it, playing back to back. We were used to that. So that was no surprise. Really just focused on Oregon that first night. And after that win, it's like, all right, we got to go with this one. And I think our coaching staff did a really good job, though, of scouting Creighton. They've always done this whole year, getting that information, really going on volumetrics and being like, here are the percentages that they set this person, this is what we're doing. They've got it locked in. So there's not too much pressure on us as players. And I think, other teams, they got information from other teams that have played them. And it was a quick turnaround, but it was something that we were used to. So I don't know.
No, it makes sense. I kind of tried a bit of the whole bracketology thing over the final few weeks of the year. And I'm gonna be honest, I said Kansas had to pretty much win out. And was that the mentality that the coaching staff kind of gave you guys? Or was it, hey, we just need to win this one and then win the next one? Or when you played the big rivalry against the Wildcats, was it, hey, we have to win this match?
It was more, we all knew, we have to win these, but we tried to reframe it as like, we're just going to focus on this one match and we're going to go out and play to the best of our ability. And if that ends up in a win, great. As long as we put it all out there, then we really can't be too upset about what happened. And then obviously it worked out in our favor. We did put it all out there and we got those 4 wins.
Yeah. And Mick and I talked, obviously earlier in this episode about this entire weekend and the entire pod down in Creighton. But Mick, what was your opinion of how Kansas kind of laid it all out there? I mean, you only lost 1 set in the 2 matches.
Well, I've seen this from Kansas before, so I wasn't too surprised because I was the recipient of one of their late season surges right there. And what's really strange about that is I went to the Texas match. I'm sitting there and the father of the left side hitter for Kansas, who beat us in that regional, in that match that where we lost, we thought we were going to the Final Four, was sitting right next to me. His daughter was the assistant coach for one of the teams that was playing. So yeah, I've had all of Kansas I can take here for the weekend, but I thought Kansas had played tough from time to time all year. What I didn't understand was why up and down several times during the season. It seemed like you guys were coming, and then all at once you just kind of disappeared, and then made another strong surge again, and then disappeared. And then at the end, I could see you were coming again. Can you relate to that at all, or am I just all wet on that?
No, I think you got the right idea. We all felt it as players. We'd feel really good and like, yes, this is it. And then all of a sudden we're like, what just happened? Like what? And especially after West Virginia, those were two kind of ugly losses, not our best play. And I think we took the time to refocus. We took that week off and we're like, okay, what really are we trying to accomplish? We know obviously there's a lot of pressure around these games, but how are we going to go and approach that? And I think we really changed our mindset to, 1 point at a time, staying together and really doing a good job of when the other team makes a good play, being like, good play and moving on. Where I think before, if someone made a good play, it was really demoralizing for us. We'd be like, dang it, like that was such a good swing. How are we going to compete with that? Instead, now we'd look at each other and be like, good play on them. Let's go get this next one.
When did you notice you lost your Minnesota accent?
I had it probably my freshman year in California, and I had enough people make fun of me for it that I was like, okay, I'm over that. So
it only comes back when you're real serious. You know that.
Yeah. Occasionally it comes out and people like to point it out, but I've gotten pretty good at covering it up because I was sick of people being like, oh, what are you saying? And I'm like, okay, I get it.
Well, you mentioned all of the opponents' key plays, and whenever they have a big play, you have to kind of tip your cap. You got to finish off the day before the Penn State-Pittsburgh match, which was filled with phenomenal plays. I think they were tied at 22-all in each of the first 3 sets. When you watched Pittsburgh, you kind of know that they're going to have those key plays. What's the biggest, I guess, piece of advice you can kind of tell some of the youngsters on your team that you have to kind of turn that shoulder against these Panthers?
Mm-hmm. I mean, knowing that obviously they're an experienced team. Like they're going to get their good plays, but so are we. So, it's just responding appropriately, instead of being like nervous and scared and like, oh no, like that was such a good play. I've, advised them. I'm like, hey, someone makes a good play, then go show them that you can make a good play. Like, oh, you got a good swing. Well, look at what I can do. I'm going to go get a good swing, and, kind of take it as a challenge instead of a threat of like, oh no, they're too good.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, that's good. And then, before the COVID year, you spent 2 years with UCLA. For those that may not know, how tuned into the Bruins and their success have you been? Were you able to watch any of the other NCAA tournament matches last week?
Yeah, I still have like quite a few friends on the team, and I still talk to them frequently. So I like to watch their games just to support them, know how they're doing. So I did watch their game against UCF. That one was a close one, but they definitively won in the 5th. So good for them. And, I'll text them good luck. They've been texting me throughout the tournament, telling us congrats and good luck. So, but yeah, I definitely keep an eye on them.
It's funny because last week we had a bit of a setter episode, and we talked to Shelby Martin from UCLA. She came from Kansas, the state, to LA, and then you go from LA to Kansas. She had a phenomenal match. It was fun to talk to her and kind of see her succeed. Last question I have for you here, Jenny, is the fact that, 7 Big 12 teams into the NCAA tournament. Now it's just 3. And we're not surprised, right, with Texas and Baylor, teams that you faced 4 times in 6 days, which has to feel pretty good coming from you guys like, hey, we're that 3rd spot. Is there still more hunger, or is it like we got to learn everything we did in that Texas and Baylor situation? Now let's kind of take care of our region.
Yeah, I think, from what we've heard, like Texas and Baylor, they were watching our games. We've been watching theirs, supporting each other, want to support the Big 12. I think we learned some really good lessons from those games that like we can compete with those top teams. So let's take the lessons that we learned there and go test them against Pitt. And then once if we have to worry about Texas and Baylor, that's when we'll worry about them. But for now, we're going to focus on Pitt.
Oh, wouldn't the storylines be phenomenal if we can get another Big 12 battle? But until then, you've got Pitt on the 9th. Thank you so much, Jenny, for joining us.
Thank you.
She's Jenny Moser from Kansas. He's Mick Haley. I'm Daniel Gilman. Thanks so much for watching Six Rotations.